Hey everyone. Now today I've got a couple of cameras here made by HikVision. So I've got one here and I've got this one here. And the reason I'm going to talk about these is because there's been some stuff in the media about the security risks with these cameras. And for those of you who don't know, they're talking about our government ripping them out of government installations because, they might feed stuff back to China. Anyway, if you're not aware, here's a couple of clips of what they're going on about.
Hundreds of Chinese-made recording devices will be torn out of some of our most sensitive buildings. There are fears the products, which can be purchased online or in stores, could be sharing data and information with intelligence services in Beijing.
This Chinese technology isn't shy about its stealth. Surveillance cameras produced by Communist Party-controlled companies
which ensure more stable and reliable transmission.
Suspected of sending valuable data back to Beijing.
They're there to keep some of our most sensitive government departments and the secrets they hold secure. But there are concerns these Chinese-made cameras could be compromised.
And all this information, as you suggested, is sent up to the cloud where it's sent on to the HikVision of the Dahua company in China.
Years ago, flaws in HikVision's technology were identified that allowed a remote user to capture the control of a device and to access anything that device had access to.
Look, I think the bottom line is don't use Chinese cameras, okay?
The thing I'm more concerned about is the way these images around town get used. So there's this brief cam application that they use to basically plot your dwell times and follow stuff around. And I'm looking for open source stuff. So there's one here called, what's it called? Sharp AI. And it may work. I've never played with it, but I hope this comes up. So looking at their architecture, I'll just bring that up. The bit I like is that you can do it on premise without being on the cloud. So it looks like it accepts all your sources and does stuff and you can do the same sort of thing. But I haven't seen that working. I don't know how it goes, but it's a matter of time because I'm all for keeping your stuff private on your own network. As long as your network's secure, then you should be right. All right, so that's that. Well, anyway, I've acquired a couple of these cameras. So what I'm going to do now is boot them up, look at Wireshark while it's doing it, and just see what they're up to. All right, now the VLAN I'm going to put them to is the one that my existing cameras are on, which don't have internet access, but I'll talk more about that later. So as I put them there, I'll start up Wireshark so you can see what's going on. All right, so I'll start up Wireshark on the router. And the interface is that VLAN and Ether host. I know this MAC address is that because I already looked at it. So I'll bring that up now. Just see what happens while it boots up. Okay, it's already doing some IPv6. And here we go for IPv4. So I would have done DHCP first, so there it is. And then what did it try to do? Okay, it's ARPing for the router. Now this here is something stale, which I'll get to in a minute. But so just forget that for just the moment and see what it's actually doing. Okay, so what's it doing? It's doing DNS everywhere. And what it's looking for is this HIK online, and it's coming back with no such name. So it's surprisingly not trying to sync to anything out there. It's just doing a bit of this, bit of that. It's got some funky little broadcast going on here, and that's about it. But there's no TCP sync going to anywhere from this thing. So basically it just does a lot of that, and obviously some ARPs to the gateway. Now if I look at that address on the web browser, you see this thing here. Now I obviously don't have a plugin for it, but I can still look around on the config and get into it. So looking at this, one thing I noticed was dynamic DNS, and look at that, it's using that hikonline.com, which is this thing that came in there. So I think if I disable that for starters, it should stop that crap coming in there. Now this HTTP stuff here is just my browser here doing that, so don't worry about that. Basically it's calmed down, so that DNS has stopped. So what else have we got? It's got a lot of things on here. PPPoE if you had to do, if you wanted this directly connected to the internet. But what I'll just quickly show you before going through all of this, which isn't really the main aim, although I will point out that UPnP probably shouldn't be on because that's a good old firewall popper, but not for mine. Anyway, I'll just go through what our government's saying about these things. So they talk a bit about this and how to stay secure, but basically it comes down to, or what they're telling people is put updated firmware on, which is what they always say, and if possible, prevent them from being accessed from anywhere in the internet. Now that's good and well from the internet, but the problem is this could still try and head out, which is always the problem with these things. So what I'll just show you is a snippet of my firewall in relation to this. Now this isn't my whole firewall, it's just this bit. And as I show you this, I want you to keep in mind the good old net filter diagram. So I'll just show you that again. So this system here is my router / firewall. So when a packet comes in here, this is the path it takes. So you've got these hooks in green here. Forwarding one is basically the routing, if it's to route through or not. But before that, you've got a pre-routing hook. So I'll go through my firewall rules. So when a packet comes in, before it does anything on the pre-routing hook, so around here, what I'm doing is if it's coming from that VLAN, which is that interface name, and the destination is NTP, I'm going to change its address to where it's going to be the router itself, to the NTP port, and the same for DNS. Because I want this thing to be able to set its clock, so the clock's accurate. But there could be a further vulnerability that they haven't mentioned where NTP could be compromised and could be passing stuff out. So if something comes into the router here, destined for something, but it's NTP or DNS, I modify it here and say, no, send it to that address here, which is a local address. So then it goes to the input hook, not the forward hook. So on the input hook, on my input filter here, I'm allowing DNS and NTP. I'm also allowing return traffic for me from my LAN, and I'm dropping everything else, so nothing else is going to get through. For the forwarding hook, on my WAN side, nothing's allowed back in anyway unless I sent it out in the first place. So I drop everything else, which is what most people do. And I do the same for the VLAN interface that these cameras are on. So same thing, if I didn't ask for any traffic, then drop it. So if it's not my return traffic, drop it. So not only does that stop things coming into my network, it stops them going out from this network that they're on anyway. So that's pretty much case closed. It's not going to be able to send anything. So what they're saying on the actual HikVision site is they're talking about the vulnerability, which according to the list of models isn't this model anyway. But what they're saying is it's prone to having a problem where if it's directly connected to the internet, someone could access it and put code on there. And while the camera's on your network, it could be gathering stuff from your network and then be vulnerable to attack. So that's what they're saying it is. Our government's just saying don't access it from anywhere, but it didn't take notice of the traffic leaving. So you've got to stop it going out, and you're pretty right. Now, in my opinion, the whole thing's been over-dramatized. So the media being the media, they've made it out like everything's going to end. And our overreacting government said, oh, let's rip it all out, which is, of course, going to cost money. If only they set it up right, you wouldn't have to do anything because, they should know how to manage the data. But they're the government and they're the media, so that's what they do. Anyway, back into it. Right, so on the server, I've got VLC running. And it's accessing that camera because I don't have RTSP on VLC on the desktop. But the server one I installed from Snap, so it has RTSP. So the camera serves a little video stream on RTSP, and I just access it with admin password at its address. And a bit of this, I use TCP for it because it's a bit more reliable. And what I then do is I stream it out as multicast, and I give it a SAP announcement of, HikVision 1. So what I can do then is go to my VLC here and just go to network streams, SAP, and they come in. I've got a few, obviously all my cameras are on there, and just click this to order them. So HikVision here is being streamed out as multicast, and you can see crap everywhere, and there we go. So that enables me to stream the multicast out on the network here without having every device connect to it directly. So the camera only has to serve one stream. You can do what you want with it. Another thing I noticed about this, it's got an SNMP server. So I set it there and turned it on, and I went to good old LibreNMS, and in it came here with SNMP. So I can see apparently this has got 256 meg of memory, using most of it, and this, that, the other. It doesn't have a network thing though. You can see where I just unplugged it before. And I'm wondering if it sends SNMP traps of motion and that to this, but I haven't set that up properly yet. Anyway, like my Swan cameras, it's also an ONVIF camera, which is, as it says here, open industry forum that provides and promotes standardized interfaces, blah, blah, blah. It's so you can connect to it with various things in a standard way. And what I did was slap it on Home Assistant. So you can see here I've got my normal cameras outside the house, and I've got this HikVision one down here. So that's the same thing as before. I just pull that up there, a bit rough, but you get the idea. So that's that. I've also got this other camera, and I tried this, and it doesn't ask for a DHCP address. So I know not much about this camera, just from a network point of view. So here's how I found out some things about that. So same thing, I'm just going to plug it into that VLAN 80. Okay, so same thing as before, and I'll run Wireshark there, keep an eye on things. And now I have no filter on Wireshark at the moment because I don't know its state. theoretically. So ignore all the other stuff and I'll just wait to see what's going on. All right, so the first thing I looked for was DHCP, but nothing came in with DHCP. I thought, okay, that's no good. So just had a look around and waited for something, because I figure it might be ARPing something eventually when it comes up. So forget all the Swan stuff, that's my existing stuff here. All right, so there's the MAC address, and what's it doing? It's doing an ARP. So it's saying it's 10.1.1.5, and who's it ARPing? Well, let's just go down to ARP, narrow it down a bit. Okay, so it's looking for 10.1.1.1, and it's obviously 10.1.1.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on that network. I'm going to set myself to 10.1.1.1 and see if I can connect to it that way. Okay, so on the laptop, I'm going to plug in one of these network adapters here, and this is connected to the same VLAN as that, VLAN 80. And what I'm going to do is, in the settings for it, for the wired network, I think I've already done it, yep, I'm just going to manually set it to 10.1.1.1. So now on the laptop here, being 10.1.1.5, which was the camera, and there it is. I should be able to go to 10.1.1.5. Now this is an admin password, but I happen to know what it is because somebody told me what it is from where it got ripped out of. Okay, so that's that. Now, if I didn't know the password for this, I believe you could pull that apart and get into the EEPROM and reset it that way. But I'm not going to try and do that with this because I do know the password, so it's pointless kind of ripping it apart. But in future, if I do get hold of some of those that I don't know the password, there could be a bit of a hardware video coming up. So anyway, I just wanted to point out how these things work and what you can do to make them secure, because I'm always of the belief that you should keep your stuff on your own network. And if you're running a government network, they should have IT staff, not just public servants dishing out money to contractors. But that's not how it works, you know. There's always money to be made by ripping all these cameras out and putting new ones in. Someone's getting money. But anyway, I just thought I'd show you, just mucking around with some new cameras basically. If I get hold of some of those new ones, then I'll play with them as well and make a video on that. But I don't know if and when I'll get hold of those, but we'll see. So anyway, that'll do for now, just a bit of fun. Till next time, take it easy.